Welcome all to Gaming Addicts. I am your host, Zero. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. This is the first time we're meeting, so long story short, Bossman reached out to me to make some cool informative videos for all of you. Bossman has a way bigger outreach than I do, and the less Baxias I see building HP based items, the better for me. Speaking of Baxia, let's get back to the purpose of the video. After a couple adjustments and buffs, Baxia is ready for the original server. And you're here to learn the most you can about him before you actually buy him. As a person who appreciates tank mains, I know exactly what you want to know about a new tank release. So I will present the information in a tank main friendly way. Make sure you click like and sub if you want to see more of this content. Tank mains always appreciate being able to skip to parts of the video they find more interesting, so here's the breakdown. First, we will very briefly go over who Baxia counters, who counters him, and who he takes very little damage from. Now, I don't consider this to be an exact counter, but you could count the fact that he doesn't take much damage from these heroes as an added bonus for him. After going over that, we will observe what his skills do and what benefit they bring to the team. Then we'll hit the longest part of the video, and it takes a lot of time to explain, since we know that tanks usually are situational counter builders. It's not the same for Baxia, so yes, what I'm referring to is of course going over the builds. Here's a bit of a teaser in case you're interested in the builds, and yes, they are all viable. I really don't feel like saying all of the heroes' Baxia counters, so I'll just overlay them on the screen for you. Feel free to pause the video. Now, this is who counters him. Again, feel free to pause, guys. Last but not least, the heroes Baxia takes almost no damage from. Multi-hit heroes. Hold up, don't go to the comments just yet. With the exception of Daira, Carrie, Karina, and Farsa, every other hero that counters Baxia can be countered by Lolita. After we go over his kit, you can start to understand why. You know what? Let's actually do that right now. You don't know this yet since this is my first time here, but I hate reading hero skills right off the game. I know you can read, so let me just simplify them for you in English instead of in-game language. Baxia's skill 1 is called Donut Mode. When using this skill, Baxia turns into a donut and begins to burn a lot of calories in order to gain a lot of movement speed. He can also jump while in donut mode, and will stun the first enemy he hits while knocking back other enemies nearby. This is boosted by magic damage. Baxia's skill 2 is called Force Feed. When using this skill, Baxia forces enemies to eat donuts. The enemies receive a slowdown because the donut adds too much weight to their body. If you throw donuts at the same target, you can basically spam this skill every 1 second. If you accidentally hit the wrong target though, you will lose the ability to spam the skill every 1 second. However, if you want to amplify the damage, you can get magic items, but it also naturally does 5% of the target's max HP, which makes it great for jungling. Baxia's ultimate is called Tortoise's Puissance. No, really, that's what Moonton called it. I call it Sugar Rush. While in Sugar Rush mode, Baxia creates lava that comes from the ground where he walks. This causes his feet to get hot and gain a 30% movement speed increase. Sugar Rush also increases Baxia's passive by 75%. But wait, Zero, you didn't even say Baxia's passive. What the heck, man? I'm going. Basically what it does is something called a final damage reduction, and it scales with your level. Late game, it is 56 damage and 100 when your ultimate is activated. You can call it Baxia's armor. What, you're not satisfied with that information? Okay, so the way this works is like such. Let's say you take 1000 damage with no armor. Having this passive up during your ultimate will reduce that damage to 900. Pretty simple, right? Let's add in some armor, and say that this armor turns that 1000 damage into 700 damage instead. In this case, you will take 600 damage only. Makes sense, right? But how well does it work with Wotak? Easy. The damage reduction applies before his passive. So 1000 damage with Wotak turns into 500, and then it gets reduced to 400 from his passive. Why is this passive beneficial, you say? Well, let's take Chang'e for example. We all know she usually shreds tanks, but she does that over a series of about 30 hits. Each hit adds up to basically delete anything out there. But Baxia's passive applies per hit, rendering her ultimate, as well as Gajin's daggers, Harley's cards, Helcurt's stingers, or Claude's ultimate, and and a couple of other multi-hit heroes burst useless. An added bonus before we move on to the biggest part of the video is that this passive also carries a natural 30% anti-regen reduction. This is separate from the item-based ones, so if one of your allies, and I quote, one of your allies, you shouldn't be buying this, buys one of the anti-regen items, the effect can go up to 80%. This is great to counter shield-based heroes like Esmeralda and Herod, as well as lifesteal-based heroes like Alucard and Sun. Now let's get into the builds. Since he is a tank, I will describe the full tank build first, and then go all the way up to the DPS build. Before we start, I want to mention that the emblem/talent do not change. The 35 hybrid defense is critical to surviving early game with Baxia. I also would like to mention that you should buy the wooden mask first to help get gold from assists while boosting XP to your allies. After 12 minutes are up, you can sell your boots and purchase a tier 3 mask instead. But try not to sell the actual mask, as getting assists with these items provides you with an equivalent amount of gold and XP from assists as if you were the one who killed the enemy. See? Double gain. Not just the person who you helped kill the enemy, but then you get the same amount of gold and XP they just did. Better yet, after 12 minutes, even if you lane with other allies, you can start to get XP too. Another thing to mention is that I recommend you take Retribution for all of these builds to help secure crabs, turtles, buffs, and lords, as well as build up Beast Killer for when you have to carry your team full of noobs. So, as a tank, Baxia's biggest weakness is building HP. The reason why is actually quite easy to understand. It's so heroes that are DHS based don't have enough of an enemy max HP to be able to bypass his passive. This is why, after the mana regen boots, because he uses tons of mana on skill 2, we build Blade Armor. Blade Armor does not provide any HP, but it does provide tons of armor. I know that it is a bit unorthodox to not put in a magic res item yet, especially in this mage meta, but hear me out. This early in the game, the only heroes that will actually hurt Baxia from the magic area would be single burst damage mages, heroes like Aurora or Farsa. Those heroes usually take until mid to late game in order to build any kind of significant burst damage, but it does not mean they won't reach that level, so we don't ignore them. However, this is why I chose Wotak. I already described to you that the damage reduction from Wotak applies before his own passive, which makes it critical against basically all damage, and yes, that includes true damage. However, I won't let you down, and the next item is indeed Athena's Shield. This is a great item, and I know it carries HP, but there are simply way too few magic res items in the game, and this one, in a sense, can help you with some burst due to the shield it provides. We then further amplify the shield from Wotak and gain more magic res by adding Oracle. In case you're wondering if I have way too many magic res items over physical defense items, let's just say you're wrong. The build right now is actually pretty even for both magical resistance and physical defense. Here's a couple of screenshots for proof. Now if your team lets you farm late game, you can get Beast Killer. Beast Killer can provide up to 65 hybrid defense, but again, only if your team lets you get those last hits late game. Let me show you some more screenshots. The first one is the full build with Beast Killer fully stacked, and the second one is the one with the tank talent active. The actual numbers should be higher than this, but my tank emblem is only level 25 on the advanced server. The final screenshot is with selling boots for Courage Mask. This item does provide a 10% hybrid attack and defense, in case you're wondering why it increased those defense numbers. On the normal server, the final endgame stats should be around 350 hybrid defense. If you think this is way too tanky and are confident you can probably sacrifice some armor for some damage, then be my guest, because what we get rid of for the hybrid or off-tank build for Baxia is basically the magic res items, in exchange for Calamity Reaper and Glowing Wand. But the order changes a bit, so let me explain. Assuming you never get the buff, Demon Shoes and Calamity Reaper will keep your hungry mana bar quite full. Calamity Reaper is bugged at the moment, and it does not have a 1.5 second cooldown as it should. Instead, it has a 0 second cooldown. You can verify this yourself by taking someone like Gushin as a test. Next in the build is Beast Killer, but of course only if your team lets you jungle. If not, then get Wotak next. You'll need it, trust me. After this, the next item you should get is Blade Armor. It's here for the same reasons as in the tank build, but if you feel like you don't need it, then go ahead and get Athena's Shield. However, if your team literally cannot or will not let you jungle at all, then you can just ignore Beast Killer and put in Athena's Shield or Blade Armor, whichever one you're missing. Basically both instead of Beast Killer, but Beast Killer is way better. It's 65 hybrid. Now the final item is called Glowing Wand. Glowing Wand will provide a lot more AoE damage than you think, so try not to ignore how powerful this item can be, especially in team fights. The last build is something you should take only if there is a secondary tank out there on your team, like say Lolita. The early game for this build is identical to the hybrid build, except that this time you will steal the jungle. It is critical, you need to steal the jungle. You also get Glowing Wand 3rd here to boost the AoE damage to the max, and then you get Ice Queen Wand on top of that to prevent enemies from escaping your lava burns or your skills in general so easily. This allows them to take more damage than they originally planned for. The last item is Genius Wand, but I recommend you only get this if there are more mages on your team. This is of course for the penetration, but also for the utility it provides to the other mages on your team. If there are no other mages on your team or no one else with magic damage, I recommend you get Divine Glaive instead. So that sums up Baxia, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video. I should be making more content for gaming addicts in the future, but if you are interested in some more of my own stuff, feel free to visit my channel, which will be linked in the description. Massive thanks to gaming addicts for this opportunity. Zero out.
Thanks for watching the video. To watch the next one, click right here. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.